Imagine waking up one morning and realizing that reality isn't what it seems. Strange flashes of light, ghostly hums, and cosmic signals defy every explanation we have, and sometimes make scientists scratch their heads. In this video, we are diving into real phenomena, true, documented events that feel like glitches in the Matrix. These aren't fairy tales or folklore, but actual mysteries of science and nature that no one has fully solved. Buckle up and get ready for a wild ride through the weirdest corners of reality. In the 1970s, a classified UK military experiment known as Project Hess allegedly documented multiple cases of soldiers vanishing for several minutes at a time from sealed, secure rooms. The men would reappear exactly where they vanished with no recollection of what happened, only confusion and nausea. Internal memos, declassified decades later, described the disappearances as, quote, brief temporal dislocations and caution about exposure to certain radio frequencies. No official explanation was ever made public, and the files were quietly buried again in the early 2000s. During early high-energy collisions at CERN's Large Hadron Collider, atomic clocks monitoring the site began to show minuscule but measurable discrepancies. Scientists noted in some tests clocks located near the collider would shift by fractions of a microsecond compared to those further away. This should not happen. Time dilation on that scale requires massive gravity or velocity. Some speculated that these could be miniature time slips caused by high energy distortions, possibly even evidence of quantum level glitches. CERN never formally claimed a malfunction of reality, but they did recalibrate every monitoring system afterward. In 2013, users on Reddit and Google Earth forums began reporting something strange. A small German town appeared as usual on Google Earth one day, then disappeared completely the next. Zooming in showed empty green space where buildings had been. Coordinates still worked, but all satellite imagery was gone. Then, 24 hours later, the town reappeared fully intact. Google never addressed the glitch, and there's no public record of map maintenance that day, so was it a software bug, or did reality briefly blink? During a solar eclipse in Zambia in 2022, astronomers and amateur photographers captured something they couldn't explain: a black dot hovering over the center of the sun for exactly 2.3 seconds. Not part of the moon, not a sunspot, just a void. Photos confirmed it, but live video feeds from the same locations showed nothing. Satellite logs from ESA and NASA recorded a momentary dip in light data, as if something absorbed the sun's radiation completely. Some dubbed it a data void. Others wonder if we briefly saw something not meant for us to see. In 2007, Lost Lake in Oregon mysteriously vanished. It happens actually every few years. The entire lake drains within 48 hours. But where does the water go? Geologists discovered a large hole at the bottom believed to be a lava tube from past volcanic activity, but even with that explanation, something just doesn't really add up. GPS mapping shows the volume of water disappearing is far greater than what a lava tube could handle, and it never floods nearby. It just vanishes. Scientists admit they have no complete model for what is going on here. In 1908, something exploded over the Siberian wilderness so violently that it flattened 800 square miles of forest, an area larger than the entire city of London. The shockwave knocked people off their feet hundreds of miles away, but when investigators arrived, they found nothing. No crater, no meteorite, just trees snapped in a radial pattern, some burned from the inside out. To this day, scientists still don't know what caused it. Was it a comet, a black hole, a pocket of antimatter? Whatever it was, it left behind one of the most powerful and unexplained events in Earth's history.
From Reddit user The Name Forever comes a very eerie possible glitch in the Matrix. So the other night I was driving to my mom's house. I looked down at my GPS and it said ETA 2 minutes. I look up and suddenly I'm back on the highway and my GPS says 30 minutes. No time had passed. Weird maybe, but I sometimes space out and miss an exit though I had already gotten off the highway and was close to turning onto my road. I didn't think much of it though. Then exactly 2.5 minutes later, as I was supposed to be arriving, my mother calls and goes, "Hey, can you bring down X, Y, and Z?" I was like, "Oh, I think I missed my exit. It's gonna be a while." She laughs and says, "Funny, just bring it down." I insist to her I am not there, and she says, "But I saw your headlights. Heard your key in the door. You said hi, Mom, and the dogs were at the door going crazy." I told her to check the driveway. She does, getting scary quiet, and says, "I gotta sit down." Turns out she was on the phone with my sister when it happened, and to this day, my sister swears she also heard me say hi, Mom, and heard the door slam shut. The story of a transforming woman comes to us from Redditor Alster5000. On my walk today, there's a bit that's a wide straight path with no ways to get off the path for about 300 meters. On one side, there's thick bushes. On the other, tall fences on the edge of AstroTurf football pitches. I'm walking one way, and the other person on the path is a woman coming from the opposite direction. She's wearing light pink baggy trousers and a black top, blonde hair, and glasses. I look down to my phone because I got a message, realize it's not something I need to respond to, and look back up. The gap between us has closed a few meters, but now the woman is wearing baggy blue jeans, a white t-shirt, and she's got green hair, a nose piercing, and no glasses. I look at her really confused, and she just sort of stares at me as she walks past. There's nowhere the first woman could have turned off the path, and the speed we were both walking, the second woman was in the right spot from the time I looked down and up from my phone. This next bizarre story comes from Reddit user CGCX3, who saw something completely unexpected on their drive home from school one day. So there's a city about 45 minutes from mine. Until this past month, we went to the city about 5 or 6 times a year for the last 15 years. We always go there and back on the same road. I started going to college in this city this semester, so I've been there about 20 times in the last month. Always on the same road, 2 times a day, 4 times a week. One day when I was driving back from school, I saw a neighborhood off to my right. It's not tucked back in a tree line or anything, and it's not just 1 or 2 houses, it's a line of maybe 15 to 20 houses, cookie cutter style, and a straight line perpendicular to the main road. The houses are all facing me as I drive home. The first one is maybe 20 to 30 feet from the road. There's cars at all the houses, and they don't look super new, but they're not old either. I can tell it's on an old pasture land, so there's no trees, and there's no sign advertising a new neighborhood. I have never seen this neighborhood before. When I drove by it, I was like, what the crap? Where did that come from? I drove by this morning and I saw the neighborhood and got a sense of unease, like I'm seeing something that shouldn't be there. I've been racking my brain trying to remember if this neighborhood was here before this week, but I can say with certainty I have never seen it before. Now this next one really reads like the intro to a Stephen King novel. Reddit user Abducted by Neon shared their story about a gas station and some mysterious fog. I was on a small road trip. My 2 friends and I were going across state lines to drop one of them off at home. It's later at night, very dark out, and no moon. We're driving down the highway and there's no cars around. We're running out of gas, so we pull over to a station, fill up. This is when it gets weird. We start driving and I glance at the clock. It's nearly 2 a.m. We're driving down the road for maybe half an hour when we hit some fog. The radio starts going nuts and dies. The place we were going to is only 2 hours away from the gas station, so we figured it wasn't a big deal. We'd just chat. 2 hours pass. No cars, no lights, no gas stations. It was like we were nowhere that existed. The fog was still around too, and we were starting to get worried that maybe we got lost. We futzed with the radio some more to try to get it to turn on, but it wouldn't. After another hour of driving, we spot lights in the distance. It was a gas station. Suddenly the fog lifted, and as we pulled in, we realized this was the same gas station. The radio turned on as we pulled up, 3 a.m., but we'd definitely gone longer than that. Had we somehow gone in a circle? Maybe this wasn't the same gas station? We got back in the car and left, but we never hit the fog again and made it to my friend's place in 2 hours. To this day, I think about that and I can't explain it. It was the most bizarre thing that's ever happened to me. And finally, from Always Manic comes the Vanishing Woman. I go to college in a small town. One night, me and a friend are coming back home from hanging out at a friend's house when we see what seems to be an old lady from a distance. I distinctly remember looking at her feet to see if she was walking to or away from us. We had a whole discussion about why the hell there's an old lady walking at 3 a.m. because 1, she's old, and 2, it's a college town anyway. Mid-discussion, she literally turns into smoke, fog, or vapor, and just blows away in the wind. We both see it and my friend yells out, "What the F?" And I just stand there, staring at the empty air where the old lady was. We sat up all night replaying step by step what we saw, but realized there was nothing we could possibly do or recount that would change what happened. A man in Spain wakes up alone in a hospital, the year showing 2027 on every device. Yet the world around him is frozen in 2020, with entire cities completely empty. Astronomers captured a black hole's corona the size of our solar system, only to find flickers of light behaving in unexplainable ways. And in the middle of Patagonia, a camera trap caught descending lights, moving at nearly 600 miles per hour, what locals call the bad lights. This is real evidence caught on camera that parallel universes are crossing into ours. So there's this guy, Unicoso Braviente, on Instagram, he's got a pretty insane story. He says that he woke up in a hospital in Valencia, Spain, completely alone. No clue who he was or how he got there. Even stranger, all the electronics read 2027. He found his hospital records and discovered that he'd been admitted on February 10th, 2021, unconscious with a high fever. Now, he's been posting all these short videos exploring the city, but it's always empty. Hospitals, police stations, fire stations, metros, airports, highways, all totally void of people. Of course, folks online constantly call him out for faking it, but some of his posts are pretty intriguing. He films himself in restricted areas, even taking cars, motorcycles, and jewelry. On March 23rd, he found an old Spanish Civil War bomb shelter. In it, he found a folder. And in that folder was some very strange information pertaining to him. It said he was trapped in some other dimension between 2021 and 2027. He'd been part of some secret mission. There was also blueprints for a time machine. The folder had equations and diagrams that eventually seemed connected to a particle accelerator at the Valencia Physics Institute. Now, it's all pretty outlandish, but it does make for a pretty interesting watch. Is this dude really posting videos from some alternate dimension he's trapped in? I mean, I'd love to think that, but if nothing else, it's very creative. Astronomers recently got an incredible look at a black hole called RxJ1131, and the photo they captured is pretty cool. The black hole itself can't be seen, but the superheated gas around it, called the corona, stretches about as far as our entire solar system. When researchers looked closely at the photo, they noticed tiny flickers in the light that didn't make sense. They were only able to see this level of detail because a galaxy sitting between us and the black hole kinda acts like a giant zoom lens. The galaxy's gravity bends and magnifies the light from the black hole, creating multiple images and letting astronomers spot details they normally couldn't. Lead researcher Mattis Ryback said, quote, "Within a few days of looking at the data, we realized, okay, this does not look right. The flickers weren't coming from the black hole. They appeared independently across the images. Turns out that individual stars in the foreground galaxy were briefly magnifying different parts of the corona. By studying these flickers in the photo, the team could map the corona and even get hints about the black hole's magnetic fields. So the point is, they're getting to learn a lot about this black hole through these images. And if we know anything about black holes, it's that we really don't know a whole lot. Black holes are incredibly mysterious. What happens to things that are pulled in? Where do they go? Do they connect to other parts of the universe? Could they be portals to parallel universes? At this point, we have no idea. It was just after midnight on January 21st in Chile's Patagonia region. Quiet, empty, middle of nowhere. A wildlife camera trap set up by the University of Magallanes to study animals suddenly snapped 3 photos in the span of 2 seconds. What shows up isn't an animal though. It's a set of bright descending lights. According to biologist Alejandro Kusch, quote, "Apparently these lights were initially distant, approached and remained in front of the camera, dazzling it in a movement that appears to be descending." Now, this camera wasn't near a road or houses. It was in a meadow, far off from anything man-made. And these traps are designed to prevent tampering. They've got infrared, motion sensors, so This is pretty strange. But it's not the first time strange lights like this have been reported. Locals have talked about what they call bad lights. For generations they've talked about it, describing them as spirits crossing the fields at night. Scientists and UFO researchers have both looked at these photos. Some think it could be a rare plasmoid, kind of like a ball of plasma similar to ball lightning. Thing is, there were no storms, no conditions at the time that would have caused something like that. UFO researcher Freddie Alexis ran tests and calculated that if it was a distant flying object, it was moving at around 590 miles per hour. News of this just came out the other day. Last October, off the coast of Yemen, a US Air Force drone captured something no one can really explain. A leaked video, handed anonymously to Congressman Eric Burleson, shows what he called an orb hovering over the water. An MQ-9 Reaper drone locks onto it and launches a Hellfire missile. One of the most destructive weapons in the US arsenal. These things are designed to shred tanks. But in the footage, the missile smashes directly into the orb and nothing happens. Journalist George Knapp described it during a hearing, saying, quote, "That's the Hellfire missile smacking into the UFO and just bouncing right off, and it kept going." The impact seemed to nudge the object slightly, even knock some debris loose, but then it just corrects its path and carries on fine. 3 military veterans confirmed what everyone was thinking. There's no human technology that could take a direct Hellfire hit and stay intact. The Department of Defense, when pressed, refused to comment. Burleson didn't speculate on exactly what the object was, but he made it clear that this was not normal.
Late at night near Marfa, Texas, locals and tourists have reported seeing balls of light dancing just above the desert floor. Called the Marfa lights, these glowing orbs, often the size of basketballs and colored white, blue, yellow, or red, appear completely out of nowhere. Witnesses say the lights can merge together, split apart, hover in the air, or zip off into the distance. What makes it creepier is that they only show up about a dozen nights a year, with no pattern in sight. The first known sighting was in 1883, and the legends grew from ghosts of Spanish explorers to secret alien bases. Scientists have weighed in with more down-to-earth ideas, maybe heated air layers bending distant car headlights, a mirage called a fata morgana, or swirls of methane gas igniting. Some physics students even filmed headlights and got similar glows. Yet even with these theories, no one can completely explain why the lights behave so oddly. There are nights when folks line up with cameras and see nothing, only for the sky to erupt in orbs the next. Scientists still admit nobody knows for sure what they are. The Marfa lights remain a true frontier of mystery, a shimmering glitch on the highway to the underworld. We think of the moon as dead and lifeless sometimes, but one mystery suggests it still holds secrets. Spacecraft orbiting the moon have detected strong, localized magnetic fields locked in some lunar rocks, especially on the far side. That's weird because today the moon has no global magnetic field or active core like Earth does. Some magnetism was expected from billions of years ago when the moon was molten inside, but the amounts on the far side just don't add up. Why are certain patches of lunar soil so strongly magnetized? A team from MIT recently suggested that a gigantic asteroid impact billions of years ago might have blasted the moon with a cloud of plasma and shock waves, magnetizing rocks across the globe. Their computer models show this could explain some of the anomalies on the far side, but even with that theory, the moon's magnetic map has, quote, large parts still unexplained. In other words, nobody has the complete answer yet. The moon seems to be playing a cosmic shell game with magnetism, leaving geologists scratching their heads. It's not a glitch you'd see with your eyes, but a hidden quirk in the moon's memory. And until we bring back more samples, the full story is still up in the air. In March 2014, Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 vanished with 239 people on board. That part is very well known. But what's lesser known is an alternative theory involving the US military base on Diego Garcia, an extremely remote island in the Indian Ocean. Some data suggested the flight veered off course and flew for hours before vanishing a second time, this time near where Diego Garcia is located. Adding to the mystery, multiple people, including a US-based tech worker named Philip Wood, allegedly sent messages from their phones after the disappearance. Wood's supposed message, posted online days later, claimed he was being held on Diego Garcia and included metadata that some claimed pointed to the island. While many dismissed this as a hoax, others were stunned by the implications. There's no confirmed explanation, and the US has never acknowledged anything unusual, but here's the glitch. How did a commercial flight vanish from modern radar, ping satellites for hours, and possibly transmit data from a military zone? Whether the metadata was faked or not, the story stirred paranoia worldwide. It feels like a window into a shadowy corner of our world where time, truth, and tracking technology all failed at once. In the 1970s, a man named Derek Smith was walking near the abandoned RAF Montrose airfield in Scotland when he said he witnessed something out of time. He reported seeing a vintage aircraft, a World War I biplane, approach the field and begin to land. As the plane touched down, the vision faded. The sight was so vivid that Smith later researched the airfield's history and discovered that a pilot named Lieutenant Desmond Arthur had died in a biplane crash there in 1913. What makes this story more chilling is that it wasn't an isolated incident. Over the years, other visitors to RAF Montrose have described similar sightings: a ghostly plane circling, phantom engines humming, and even full apparitions of early 20th century airmen walking the field. Some theories suggest a quote time slip, a localized distortion where moments from the past replay in our present. Unlike typical ghost stories, these sightings were investigated by historians and even Air Force personnel who confirmed the area's long-standing reputation. The Royal Air Force eventually fenced off parts of the site, whether it was trauma imprinted on the land or something stranger. RAF Montrose became a real-world glitch where time didn't play by the rules.
From voices calling your name when no one is home, to landmarks disappearing and mysterious fog leading you astray. These are unbelievable glitches in reality that will leave you speechless. I heard him call out to me, but he wasn't home. From Reddit user Timely Discussion 90 comes a pretty eerie experience she had one night. So last night my husband was out with his mates. I was at home alone with the dogs. He left his house keys at home and I told him to text me when he's on his way so I can unlock the door. At about 11:30 p.m. I was reading and heard my husband at the door say, "Hey babe." The dogs didn't move and I said, "Yeah, 1 second." I got no response. He'd normally respond with no worries or something along those lines. I froze when I realized he didn't respond. I messaged him and he was still out at his mate's place. The feeling I felt once I said 1 second was a feeling of gut-wrenching dread. It was like my insides ran cold and I have no idea why. It took me a good hour before I calmed down. My husband arrived home around 2 hours later. What the hell was this? It was 100% his voice. Reddit user Plastic Context 8570 shares their terrifying experience hearing someone using their shower upstairs, only no one was home. I recently moved into a 2-story apartment with no upstairs or downstairs neighbors. I've heard weird things a lot since I've been here. Footsteps, drawers opening and closing, my door slamming. But something I can't even explain just happened. My roommate is at work and I'm the only one home. I was sitting downstairs, zoned out and drawing, when I realized I was hearing footsteps and noise upstairs, followed by the noise of the shower turning on. After a while of sitting there listening, I finally got the courage to go upstairs and check the bathroom. The shower curtain was completely closed, and sure enough, the water was running. I could see the water drops hitting the curtain and slightly moving it. I heard it hitting the bottom of the tub. I know it wasn't on before, and honestly, this really freaked me out. So naturally, I got the F out of there and hid downstairs, shaking until I found the strength to go back and open the curtain. After about 10 minutes, I heard the shower turn off. The curtains move, loud footsteps, then silence. I somehow got myself to go back up and about 20 minutes later, look in the bathroom. The curtains were now open halfway so you could see into the shower and the water was off. I checked the whole upstairs and found nothing. No one came down and no one went up. So yeah, just a note to this Redditor. Forget the glitch in the Matrix thing, you have a squatter in your apartment. I'd set up some hidden cameras. This was posted yesterday, so get on that. Ever had a lost item reappear out of nowhere? This happened to Redditor Dazzling Grass 7531, who said they'd grabbed their hand sanitizer from their backpack while sitting on the couch, used it, and went to bed. The next day they noticed it was missing. They searched everywhere, tearing apart their backpack, checking the couch cushions, but there was no sign of it. They finally remembered the Wi-Fi camera they had set up to watch their pets, which was aimed at the couch. Checking the footage, they found the moment where they put the sanitizer back in the backpack. So they went to check the backpack one more time, and there it was, clearly visible in the main compartment. Dazzling Grass finished off by saying, "I'm absolutely certain it was not in there. It's in the main compartment, and there was nothing else in the compartment except the hand sanitizer. It would have been impossible to miss. I feel like I tricked the universe into giving it back." One commenter said that the story reminded them of the double slit experiment in quantum physics, and that is actually a really interesting point. For those of you who don't know, this is an experiment that shows how light and tiny particles, like electrons, can behave in very strange ways. Mainly that they can act differently depending whether you're looking at them or not. So imagine we have a wall with two narrow slits and then another wall behind it. When light or particles shine through these slits, you'd expect to see two lines on the wall in the back, corresponding to where these slits are. But instead, you see a pattern of many lines, like stripes. This happens because the light waves spread out and interfere with each other. But here's the thing. If you try to watch which slit the particles go through, they behave like regular particles and you only see the two lines. But when you don't observe them, they act totally differently, like waves, creating that interference pattern. It's very strange, but observation seems to affect how particles behave. Basically, what I'm getting at, for the sake of entertainment here, is if this Redditor never looked at the footage of them putting the hand sanitizer back in their bag, would it have been there if they looked a second time? Or had they just somehow missed it the first time? Ever experienced a Mandela effect that only you and a small group of people close to you know about? Like, say, your car changing color, for example? Because that's what happened to this next Reddit user, Professional Ear 5923. They had a blue 2001 Volkswagen Jetta TDI, a car they spent plenty of time in with friends. Even though they didn't drive it much anymore, it did work as a hangout spot, especially since they lived in a small trailer with their family. They'd just been in the car the night before, when they glanced out the window only to see that the car had changed color to green. The Redditor called their friends over to check it out, and to their surprise, everyone thought the car had been blue as well. This haunted the Reddit user and their friends, especially after they dug through old photos and realized the car had apparently always been green. So what happened here? Did a family member accidentally wreck their car and then replace it with a green one overnight, or something like that? Or could this really be a genuine glitch in reality? From Reddit user Black Widow 44 comes the Vanishing Mountains. I was living in southern Washington and would often kayak in this lake where you had a very clear view of two large mountains. I had a favorite spot I liked to kayak out to where I'd sit and enjoy the view. One day I went to the lake to kayak. As I was approaching my spot, I noticed that you very clearly could not see the two very large mountains as usual. I thought maybe I was too far away and the mountains were under the horizon or something, but as I reached my spot, the mountains were nowhere in sight. I had many very clear landmarks that told me I knew I was looking in the right direction. The mountains are very close to this lake, and before you guys say it, visibility was perfect. There were no clouds. The mountains were simply not there. It was the eeriest thing. It's as if the mountains grew legs and walked away. I had two other friends with me who frequented this lake who confirmed the entire story and can also not explain it. To this day, I am sure I entered a parallel universe or that lake was some kind of Earth vortex. Did some kind of black hole open this girl's apartment? So this woman had a very strange incident involving her Apple Pencil. Seems there was some sort of glitch, but not the type of glitch tech support could help you with. So she talks about how she only has one Apple Pencil, has only ever had one Apple Pencil, and it's immediately recognizable because it was damaged by a dog. She also kept her Apple Pencil in the same place, the case on her desk, by her iPad, but one day a second Apple Pencil suddenly turns up in her apartment and it's got the same bite marks. Now, if we're to assume this story is true, that is pretty dang strange, but stuff like this happens. think we've all had an experience in the same kind of vein, finding two of something you thought you only had one of, personal belongings going missing and then turning up in a very obvious spot, stuff like that. What's going on? I can't say for sure, but is it possible that different realities briefly cross over and sometimes items from some parallel version of reality get left behind? I don't know. Back in 1995, NASA pointed the Hubble Space Telescope at what looked like the most boring spot in the sky, an area of darkness in the constellation Ursa Major, where there didn't seem to be anything at all. They left the shutter open for 10 days straight, and when the image came back, it shocked everyone. That quote-unquote empty patch of space was actually packed with thousands of galaxies, not stars, not planets, entire galaxies, each one holding billions of stars. The photo became known as the Hubble Deep Field, and it's still one of the most incredible space images ever taken. It's crazy how far away some of these galaxies are. We're talking about light that left them more than 12 billion years ago, meaning we're literally looking back in time almost to the beginning of the universe. And this was just one tiny piece of sky. Astronomers compared it to looking through a straw. They later repeated the experiment with newer cameras, creating the Ultra Deep Field and the Extreme Deep Field, which revealed even more distant galaxies. Some of the faintest smudges in those pictures are the oldest galaxies ever seen. In this next clip, a group of people are hanging outside when they notice something strange. It's the middle of the night, but all of a sudden the sky lights up bright blue, like it instantly turned into daytime. And then, just as quick, everything snaps back to darkness. And yeah, there's a storm rolling in, you can see heavy clouds and faint flashes of lightning in the distance, but this was clearly not a normal lightning strike. The whole sky lit up so bright it looked like the sun had risen for a few seconds before disappearing again. And finally, this strange video was posted by a girl who seems to be experiencing something mysterious in her backyard, in that it changes when she goes from her balcony to the ground floor. And then she opens the back door and steps outside, and so as you can see, the backyard looks totally different from the view we saw on the balcony. Where did all the garbage go? Now, assuming this isn't a hoax, which is always possible, this is a pretty strange situation. But speaking of garbage though, I don't know if she had a party the night before or something, but dear God, what is with all that trash? Don't live like that. Raccoons are gonna get into it.